You can count me among those people who did not know exactly everything that C.J. Gardner-Johnson was about. He had an incredible season in 2022, and I saved up film of him, his one season with the Eagles months ago, and never got around to doing the video. But after listening to his comments or responses, I should say, to questions in the news media the last 2 or 3 days since he returned from injury, a pretty scary injury, I think on the first day of practice, maybe the second for the Lions. A lot of concerns about him being out for an extended period of time, and it turns out he's not. He was back on the field in pads in 4 days. If you listen to some of his answers, just seems to have an infectious attitude. I knew that his play was spectacular, and I didn't even look at any film of his time in New Orleans other than the essentially game-ending interception in Week 15 of 2021 against the Bucks and Tom Brady when they shut Brady out 9-0. Other than that play, I didn't look at any film from 2021. I don't need to. If it's anything like the 2022 film, it's freaking unbelievable. And what he's going to bring to this Lions defense is not singular. It's dynamic. He seems to be someone you can put him anywhere, and he'll do the job. We're going to get into some of the film. Look, he's not just a ball-hawking free safety. He's not just an active guy in the box as a nickel safety. He can play middle of the field. He can play half-field safety. He can step into the box and shed blocks. He's just a great football player, and apparently has ridiculous energy and leadership qualities that, maybe that's one of the reasons the Lions went and grabbed him. I find it's difficult for me to understand why the Eagles would let him go unless he thinks he's worth so much more money that they weren't able to afford him with, re-signing, I think, Darius Slay and some of the other guys that they signed. I don't pretend to know everything about him, but what I can see and hear and understand is that he's got unbelievable energy, and it shows on the field in the film. Tremendous versatility, just a great burst. Ball skills are off the charts. Ability to be involved everywhere. And this is based on 2022 film, as I said, wherever the Eagles put him and whatever they asked him to do, man, zone, he was effective. Tackles very well in space, and you'll see some examples of that here a little bit later on. I think he's got great eyes and understands concepts. You'll see times where guys are eyeing the quarterback, apparently, but I think there's instances, and C.J. Gardner-Johnson, I think, is one of them, where guys understand the route concepts as they are coming, and they know where the routes are going to be, and that's why they can spend a little bit more time looking at the quarterback, because maybe they have some indicators post-snap as to what the route combinations are going to be as we transition to some plays of him up near the line of scrimmage or as a nickel safety. He plays split field coverage well. Middle of the field stuff showed you that already. When you add him to Kirby Joseph, Tracy Walker, and Brian Branch, the Lions have so many options in terms of pre-snap alignment and coverages. I don't think Walker and Joseph ever played it down because I think Walker tore an Achilles last year. And there's other guys who are going to play outside. I'm talking about their outside cover corners. I know they signed Sutton. But adding those guys, adding Branch and Gardner-Johnson, then bringing Tracy Walker back, is insane. It's borderline unfair how tough and athletic this safety group is now, and all the different options that they're going to give Aaron Glenn as the defense coordinator. Let's talk about some of the film from 2022. He did miss, I think, 5 games. Still had 6 interceptions, and as you see, everywhere they put him, the ball shows up there, or he shows up where the ball is. However you want to describe it. Those 6 interceptions, I believe, all came over a 5-week stretch, which is pretty uncanny in terms of his feel for the game, his feel for the routes, and what he sees developing. I mean, this is Daniel Bellinger, who's a stud, and that is a clean, open tackle with some space there for Bellinger to possibly use. I think he's exceptional as a nickel or slot corner, but so is Brian Branch. And the options that they will have with those 4 there at safety, slot, corner is pretty unbelievable. I think of the 2 new guys, Gardner-Johnson has the better man coverage skills than Branch against one specific group, the quicker, slippery wide receivers that you might see more so in the NFL. I thought Brian Branch's film at Alabama was unbelievable. It was just pure fun to watch, somewhat similar to Gardner-Johnson. But having said that, where I thought Branch had a relative weakness compared to all of his myriad of other skills was covering the smaller guys. I thought against bigger tight ends, both of these guys would be more than capable of handling the athletic tight ends. When you talk about the athleticism that's been added to this Detroit defense this year with Branch, Gardner-Johnson, the return of Tracy Walker. They drafted Jack Campbell, who's a stud athlete at Mike linebacker. All of these guys tackle extremely well. And the thing about Gardner-Johnson is not only does he tackle well, but he brings some violence on contact. He's very willing to tackle out in space in congested areas like this, using his hands to get off a lineman who didn't really even intend to block him, don't get me wrong. It really is amazing the talent that Brad Holmes and the front office have brought in this offseason on the defensive side of the ball specifically. And I know that most people focus on the offense. They drafted Hendon Hooker, Laporta, the tight end. They got Jahmyr Gibbs. Don't get me wrong. The offense deserves a lot of attention. It's right to give a lot of attention to Ben Johnson's offense because it's so well coordinated and created. And he's so multiple in what he does and utilizing a ton of players across a lot of concepts. But what C.J. Gardner-Johnson appears to bring with all the leadership, the on-field skills, the charisma, I think it's just off the charts as a signing. I'm going to probably misquote him, but the part that really got me was when someone asked him about not being out at practice. And he said, I was out here every day. I was at practice. So I was getting mental reps. I was coaching my guys. I was talking and communicating. He was participating even when he wasn't participating. There's a different level of commitment there, and it sounds like he's always been that guy. If you look at the way that he jumped up and kind of got in Brady's face, I think twice in that Week 15 game. I mean, who does that? Especially somebody who I think at the time was 22 years old. And then a further extended quote when they asked him about getting back out to practice physically, why it was so important to him to get out so quickly. He said, because I'm contagious. I'm like the flu. It's going through your body, and either you get it or you don't. The mentality there is just something that I think is unique. The willingness to say those things and maybe sound a little bit out there, but I don't think he is. I think there's some real method to what C.J. Gardner-Johnson brings, and I think there's some really, really astute guys in the front office. Brad Holmes, first and foremost Brad Holmes, but other guys as well. I think this defense, if they can pick up where they left off in 2022, after their 1-6 start, they can pick up where they left off after that. They're going to shock some people. I think it's possible with guys like C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Brian Branch, Jack Campbell being brought on board, young guys trained in some classic systems. Alabama, Brian Branch. Iowa, Jack Campbell, which if you don't know about Iowa defensive football and who's coaching it, I don't know what to tell you. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, a guy whose lineage, he's played with some great guys in the New Orleans secondary. Certainly the Eagles had a top-of-the-line secondary last year, DB group last year in 2022. A lot of experience there. I think this defense might level up. I think it's possible that they could level up from 2022. Huge test in Week 1 for them. I, for one, can't wait to see it. I'm actually in the middle of watching some of the C.J. Gardner-Johnson film from the Super Bowl. So if you would kind of like for me to, I can maybe do a follow-up to this about how he played against the Chiefs, the team that the Lions are going to see, obviously, in Week 1 on Thursday Night Football. Appreciate you guys' time. If you watch this video this long, please let me know in the comment section, what your perspective is about this signing, about how C.J. Gardner-Johnson has an impact, whether he's on the field or not, but specifically when he is on the field, and the multitude of ways that they can use him, along with the other guys they brought in. Appreciate you guys checking out the video. If you have not already subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. And if you really like this video, think other Lions fans might enjoy it, please consider grabbing a link to this and sharing this content out on social media to help this video get more reach.